Shakir. Your team. Our pizza. Picasso's. Order online today at Picasso'sPizza.net.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to this Trainwreck Sports Podcast, where we are here to pay the bills. Jake Micah, joined this week by Carson, as we are here to break down Carson, we haven't gotten a lot of your thoughts yet. Last week, it was just me and the mics. So we're going to get your thoughts on the Super Bowl and everything that entails that later on. But there is pressing news right now as we are sitting here in this very moment. Our friends at Polymarket Sports, who is one of the best predictive analyses that you can get anywhere, betting market, whatever you want to call it, they've got it. They have called the race. Josh Allen will be NFL MVP according to Polymarket. They've called it. Josh Allen's at like 98%. So now, if Bills fans were like trying to not think about the MVP race going into tonight, thinking like, whatever, I don't care that much, the betting markets are not giving you reason to just not take it seriously, because the betting markets have said all day and are continuing to say, and Joey here is saying too, that Josh Allen's going to win the MVP tonight. So, thoughts, Carson?
Yeah, that's interesting because, well, first of all, it tastes a lot better if we're in the Super Bowl right now, first and foremost. But second of all, I find it interesting because obviously Lamar's on that first team All-Pro ballot quarterback spot, and a situation hasn't happened like this in, I want to say it's over a decade at least. So this is definitely interesting here. It appears maybe there's been some sort of leak for some whatever reason that has spiked. So typically when something like that happens, they know something the average person doesn't, and calling it like that in a spot where nobody really knows anything is also very, very interesting. And we've been on the show all year long saying this is Josh's. He deserves this. There's an argument last year that he should have won it. Lamar, all the MV3 talk, all that stuff. Be nice for the Ravens fans to eat this one a little bit. So I want my man Josh to take this one home. I think he deserves every bit of that, regardless of what voter fatigue argument that people will throw out there. I think this is Josh's. I would love to see that, and hopefully all the predictions in Polymarket is correct here. They've been correct so many times in the past, so they're reliable. Yeah. So we'll have to see here in a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, they've been great. This is I do wonder if it would be unprecedented for them to do this. It hasn't happened in 25 years. So not unprecedented, but it's just unlikely to have named Lamar first team All-Pro and Josh the MVP. But they were so close this year that maybe the voters were just like, we have to give, some respect to Lamar to give him this All-Pro because Josh Allen's going to be the MVP. And if that's the way they decided to do it, I don't think that's the wrong decision, because I do think both these guys deserve some sort of merit. It's going to create a ridiculous off-season of arguments about who should have been MVP, whatever. It's not going to help, calm the fires between Bills and Ravens fans. It's only going to stoke them further. But Josh Allen deserves this. I think both guys are deserving, but if Allen wins, it's very deserving. He's going to be at the ceremony tonight,
yes,
which I think is a big tell that he's winning this award. I don't think he would show up if he thought he had no chance.
I would agree with that.
That's, I think, an interesting thing there.
Imagine they tried out a co-MVP tonight, though. I don't think the world would be able to go to sleep.
I would laugh so hard. This is my dream. My dream is the co-MVP, just so no one's happy about it, and we argue about it for the rest of our lives. I do think co-MVP is in play.
It is. It's definitely in play. I think it's unlikely, but it's certainly
I think it's more likely they give it to Josh, and Lamar got the All-Pro because they wanted to recognize him in that way, and I think that's fair. I think you All-Pro, first team All-Pro quarterback and MVP doesn't have to be the same thing. It usually is, but you can be the most excellent quarterback in the league and not be the most valuable. I think this argument comes down to valuable, and you just look at the All-Pro teams just show you all you need to see about what, if we're talking about value, that's the easiest way to look at this for this team. So very deserving for Allen if it happens. Polymarket says it's happening. now I will at least be tuning into the NFL honors for the last hour or maybe the last half hour for an MVP. I'm not watching that whole damn award show. I hate award shows, and I'm definitely not watching the NFL
It's
award
bad,
show.
yeah.
But I will be locked if Josh is up there. They show pictures of them showing up at the awards tonight. They're there. He's ready. Like he's there to accept it if he's going to win it. So we'll see. But let's get into some of the talk around Super Bowl week, because Super Bowl week has been talk basically anything but the Super Bowl going on. The NBA, if you were just watching Happy Hour Hoops and jumped over here, trades galore. Luka Doncic has taken over the league. And in the NFL, they're like, well, we can do this trade thing too. And Myles Garrett today was basically just out there campaigning for a trade. Like he was literally just like, hey, y'all, I could come to you. I could be a good team. I could do all this. So Myles Garrett has requested a trade. Browns fans feel a certain type of way about it. Maxx Crosby wants a new deal, but is open to new horizons, it says. How are you feeling about this summer of pass rushers shaping up? Trey Hendrickson needs a deal. Like, there's guys out there. Do you think the Bills should make a move for one of these guys?
I think they're definitely bare minimum. You're going to make a few phone calls on these. The cap situation makes you think, is this really in the Bills' best interest? They went after Von. I think it was the right move at the time a few years ago. I mean, my guy blew his ACL out against Detroit a few years back. He's playing solid football before that. It's really hard to come back from something like that at his age at 34. So that's a difficult thing to come back from. I think there was some parts of the year where he was extremely useful this year. But at the end of the day, once again, I thought the edge rushers failed us against KC. So, that's a huge need for us. I think a guy like Myles Garrett would do absolute wonders. I think a guy like Maxx Crosby would also do the same. But the contracts and cap space is a real thing. You can bend it, you can flex it all you want, but eventually it will catch up to you. And guys need extensions on this team. For instance, James Cook is one of them. You don't have a ton of cap space to play with this year. I know it does get a little bit better next year, so you could make a few restructures as far as either Crosby or Garrett's contract would go. I think immediately, if you do acquire one of these guys, you're probably going to give up one of your edge rushers, whether it's Epinesa, most likely probably Greg Rousseau, plus a few picks. So that in itself is kind of tough, but at the same time, you're only going to get so many runs at this, right? So I think I'm not open to it. I think you listen to the asking price, you get a feel for it, but at the same time, though, I think there are a few guys out there who could suffice for a year, like Khalil Mack, Chase Young, even Lorenzo Carter a little bit. Those are guys who've been around the league for a bit. Chase Young obviously is a little bit younger, but those are there's some free agents out there that the Bills I could definitely see pursuing without giving up that large asking price. But definitely, you better know Brandon Beane's going to be making a few phone calls.
Yeah, Bean is going to be working and trying to make something happen here. Whether they think, like you said, whether the price is right will be the biggest thing. I'm okay with getting rid of a Rousseau and pick situation. If it's Rousseau and 2 firsts, that's like too much. Like that's where I'm drawing the line. I think Rousseau in a 1 and one of the 2s or something, or a 3. I think I'd be okay with that, just because the ceiling of Myles Garrett is literally the best pass rusher we've ever seen before 30 years old in the NFL. Like, has the most sacks. He's been the most effective. So there is a discussion about, well, he's about to turn 30, all this other stuff. But if there's one guy who's going to defy the odds, and pass rushers, you just named a couple guys who are a little older who are still effective, like Khalil Mack. Like, they age pretty well. Do we not think that one of the biggest athletic freaks we've ever seen at the position is going to be able to age well into the position? So I don't think this is just a move for the next 3 years. I think it could be 5, 6, 7 years down the line. And Garrett's been talking about Josh Allen all week. Like, Josh Allen's name has been in his mouth. He's taking pictures with Deion Dawkins. That one picture that's hilarious of the Bills players all taken, and Myles Garrett's just kind of like half in the frame. I don't think any of these things are on accident. I think he's been hanging around with them. I'm sure that Garrett and Crosby, even his comments too, I'm sure they both want to go to Buffalo. There's no doubt in my mind that these guys would both love to be Buffalo Bills. It's just between the organizations at this point. So you're looking at the Browns, who have stated multiple times, we don't want to trade Myles Garrett. That's going to be a tough negotiation. It's not going to happen right overnight. It's probably going to take up until draft day for him to get moved, I would imagine, or at least into the beginning of free agency to see what teams are paying and stuff like that. If they decide to move him, he's got 4 years left on his deal. So they could they could take this to camp, and he might hold out. Like that is an option. If you're the Browns, do you want to do that with all the dysfunction you have around your franchise? I would just cut it clean and just let the guy go. He's done enough for you for these 8 years. I think you should honor his request. But we'll see what happens. In the Crosby situation, we can't trust what the Raiders are going to do. The Raiders are a mess. They're always a mess. And I don't care if Tom Brady's running the organization or Pete Carroll or Mark Davis or whoever it is. We don't know what they're going to do. They're liable to do anything. They might pay Maxx Crosby the bag that he deserves, or maybe it's a deal where he's getting shipped out and he would be a great Buffalo Bill too. But I do think Brandon Beane, I think that no matter what, these guys want to go to Buffalo. I think that part is enough. They were probably telling their agents, get me away to Buffalo. Beane's got to figure out the compensations right, but they talked about wanting elite players on this team last week at that press conference. Joey here, Garrett's the closest thing to Bruce Smith I've ever seen play. I mean, it seems like hyperbole, but it's also like you could make that case with how good Myles Garrett's been. The cap situation, Beane was like, "Oh, we're not going to be players in free agency." You can't ever believe him when he says that. He said that before they signed Von Miller,
Correct.
So he's always going to say that. They can find the money, and the thing is with the Rousseau part of it is he was one of those guys that we were talking about being up for an extension this summer, and it kind of just eliminates that issue altogether. And do you really want what he would have to pay him to keep him around? You don't really want to pay him if you're going to pay a Myles Garrett or a Maxx Crosby anyways. So that's a great trade chip to have, I think, that benefits the Bills, because if you're trading him to the Browns, at least you're getting, if the Browns are getting Rousseau, he's not Myles Garrett by any stretch of the imagination.
He can play though.
But yeah, he can play. He can step in and start day one. You can give him a contract as soon as he shows up, and he will be a building block for your defense. You're not going to be, you don't have the game record anymore, but you're not you're not horribly set at that position. You're still pretty set. Joey said about Crosby's $95 million deal. Crosby's deal it's got 2 years left on it. So he's due for an extension probably going into this summer or next summer to see what that kind of deal looks like. So we'll see. But I think Myles Garrett would prefer to be a Buffalo Bill. Will the Browns make that happen for him, or will they send him to the NFC to not bother them is the real question. I think that's really all it comes down to. It's convincing the Browns to do it. But I think Beane wants to make it happen. Garrett wants to make it happen. We just got to convince the Browns to do it. So I do think Myles Garrett's pretty likely, as likely as it can be.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. I think if you're the betting market is true. If the Bills are the favorites for Myles Garrett, and then if the Eagles lose on Sunday, they're going to try to get Myles Garrett too.
The betting market's always loved Myles Garrett to the Bills for what that's worth. It's
always the betting market loves any star player to the Bills.
It loves
They're if any stars available, the Bills are plus 400 right at the top.
Which is funny because it's the complete opposite for the other professional team in Buffalo. But it's crazy how that works, because you build a winner for a few years, and you get that close. It's easy as a competitor to want to join that winning team. So I love what the possibilities and ramifications could look like here. I think this team that we're going to have coming up is going to be just as good and hopefully better this year. I thought our team this year probably overperformed a little bit to expectation for what was considered a retooling year. But once you get to the AFC Championship, all that is out the window. So I think that they're going to have some difficult decisions to make as far as who they're going to bring back this year. I don't know if the cornerback 2 is necessarily on the roster. Like we said, edge rusher is still something we're looking for. And definitely wide receiver. You can never have enough of those. And maybe, just maybe, I think safety is definitely a position they're going to look as well if they want to bring in some competition there for Hamlin, Rapp, whoever's back there next year.
Yeah. I agree with you on CB2. That is, I did see a rumor about Charvarius Ward today being interested in going to the Bills, and that might be a little too rich for my blood. But I was not a fan of Russell Douglas all year. Honestly, looked like he lost a step, and I don't think you get a step back.
I think I'd agree with that. I
don't think he was bad, but I think the athleticism is
serviceable.
starting to go, and that's the problem. He's still smart enough to get it done. But I think the big thing that made him a big, a real impact player was the athleticism to make those, jumping routes and getting the picks and making the athletic, aggressive plays on the ball to kind of get the turnovers he had through his career. It just didn't look like he had that same burst, that same twitch that he's had in the past.
I would agree for sure. I thought, like you said, mentally he's extremely solid. He's up there, one of the best in the league. Athletically, he's dealt with a few injuries over the course of his career. I thought he did take a little bit of a step back, especially in the second half of the season. So it's going to be interesting with him. I have no problem if he's back next year as the cornerback too. I think there's definitely a lot worse you can find out there. But he's a guy who I don't know if he's going to be back next year. It's going to be something where they're probably going to make a few moves before him, see where they are with the cap situation, and they're going to be comfortable. If they want to bring him back, they will. If they want to test the market, that could happen as well. But I think he's a guy who's a real swing state 50-50 type of guy if he's going to be returning.
I agree. And it depends. Like we saw Bills, I can't remember the dude's name, but the defensive assistant they just signed has a heavy background in man coverage. And the Bills ran a lot of man coverage in the playoffs too. So could be a trend to what they are going to kind of look towards next year to be more of a man zone hybrid. They're never going to fully go to a man coverage based team or anything, but adding that more to the arsenal, I think that having Christian Benford is the reason they're doing that, because Christian Benford is one of the best one-on-one cornerbacks in the NFL. So you have to take advantage of that strength. So they need to find a guy across from him that can hold his own. Joey agrees here. Douglas was a step behind. Elam, I don't even care. Elam, whatever. Carson, this is for you, buddy.
Come on, now the bunt train never stops. The bunt never stops. That's the weekly comment I look forward to when I come on.
I know. And look at that. Bunt's not even here. Matt's loyal, staying with us. We miss Mike Bunt. He'll be back. He'll be back soon. But listen, I agree with Douglas. I think that there's a lot of holes on this team. Everybody is like looking at the roster like, oh man, we didn't go to the Super Bowl and there's so many holes on this roster. Like the holes have been there all year. The team got to the AFC Championship with all the holes. We knew the offseason was going to be a lot of work on this roster. This wasn't going to be a finished product team. That's exciting. They're going to be better next year. They're still going to have holes on this roster, but they are going to be overall a better team, no matter what happens. Matt's hyped. Go get a lockdown corner, pay him. We do. It would be great. It would be great, but we got to build through the trend. That's why I would rather pay that money to Garrett than do another and be cheap at the opposite corner of Benford than pay it a premium price for a corner opposite of Benford and go cheap at the line.
Yeah, for sure. A good defensive end and edge rusher can hide a lot more of your defensive deficiencies than a good corner can. That's just how it works. It's 50-50 to begin with, whether it's a pass, and then where they go from that and where it's schemed up and the game plan goes, that's a whole separate scenario. So the deficiencies can be hid way more for a guy like Myles Garrett than, for instance, Travarius Ward that we just brought up.
Yeah, and I think the Garrett and Crosby thing, that's the last thing we'll touch on these two specifically, because the Garrett and Crosby thing, if you're looking at the spending-wise of it and worried about that, Vaughn's coming off. And that Miller was the swing a couple years ago. That was this move. You can be mad at the result. He got hurt. The process was right, though, and the thought was right, and we were all behind it when it happened, when they did the signing. So this would be a similar thing to that. Matt, we need to hit in the draft. We do. The first round's been an issue the last couple years, and they need to stop drafting for need. I saw Joe Miller touching on that a lot last week. Best player available, even if it's at a loaded position, because this team needs talent. Like, it's not that they're not a talented team, but they need more swings at upper echelon talent in the NFL. Jimmy's and Joe's could put them over the edge here. They are one of the smartest, well-coached, well-schemed teams in the league. They need some game wreckers. Like, that's really what it comes down to. You know that. You know that as a guy who's played football your whole life. Like, sometimes it just comes down to dudes on the field just winning their one-on-ones over and over again. And the Bills don't have a lot of guys that win all their reps. Like, it is what it is.
The McDermott haters are going to hate that you just said that.
I know.
Let's face it. Like, this team is really well coached. Sean McDermott, since 9/11 stories have come out, has been in a different tier of coaching. I thought he's done a tremendous job. Joe Brady, 95% of the time looks like he should be a head coach. No doubt. And he will be a head coach when the time is right for him, barring Bobby Slowick type of downfall. So I think the coaching staff is there's a few people on that coaching staff that I probably wouldn't have. We've talked about this before, Jake, but I think the majority of that coaching staff, championship caliber, no doubt about it. It comes down to the Jimmies and Joes at every level of football. If you have a guy who's just better one-on-one, you're going to give him that chance 9 times out of 10, and he's going to come down with it. It's the talent was the issue from the macro perspective this year. If we can get 1 or 2 guys, get us over the hump. But once again, there's never a guarantee. And this is the part that makes it so disappointing is no matter what, you're not guaranteed anything next year. Is you have to restart from scratch. And Tom Brady really emphasized that on a lot of his broadcasts. So I think, you had a few guys here and there. Again, you got to keep the culture perspective. I think that's what got you as far as it did this year for a majority of the season. So you had a few guys, and what's not to say you give it another run again, maybe win another AFC East championship or AFC East title, and we'll see where it goes. Whenever you got Josh, you got a chance.
Speaking of Josh, look at our guy. Look at him looking dapper there at the NFL honors. He's locked in. He's ready to win MVP tonight.
Yes.
Look at that suit. I've never seen him look so suited and booted up. Like, this is crazy. Black.
I know. Neither have I.
Our guy's ready to go. Yeah. So let's finish up on that here. We'll wrap up this show and get on to the honors and see what happens with our guy Josh Allen tonight, because I want your just overall. You don't need to give me and I'm not trying to like dredge up your trauma from watching the game or anything last Sunday. I think we were all kind of in our process of acceptance and looking forward and everything. But how are you feeling like about the Bills going into this offseason, going into the draft, going into next season? Like, are you still optimistic? Like, are you going to be ready? Now, listen, I'm gonna preface this for everybody here who isn't familiar with Carson's outlook on the Bills this season. Carson picked against the Bills. You were right. You picked the Chiefs by 3. So I want to say you're a smart man. You know what you're talking about. It hurts. It sucks. But hey, you were right. You were on it. But you were pretty pessimistic about the Bills coming into the season. Not pessimistic that think they were going to be bad, just that the competition was going to be able to kind of raise their level. Yeah. So what do you think going into next season right now, before you see any of the moves? Like, what do you think? Where do you think the Bills end up in the NFL hierarchy when we're talking power rankings, all this other stuff going into the season?
That's a tough question because, like I said before, it's really hard to get as far as they just did. So I think it's a given they're going to be in the upper top 5, as they should be. They've earned that right. They played consistent, all-around, phenomenal football for a majority of the season, including in the postseason. I think there's a definite universe where the Bills win that game. When you play a little bit of the refs in certain situations as well, I don't think the refs should be blamed as much as they have. You got to win the football game. You're never going to lose because of the referees. But I think, maybe he picks up that first down. They give him a generous spot there. A call or two go our way, maybe. We're talking about a different ball game. But at the end of the day, that's not what happened. Who cares? It's an excuse at that point. So I view it as, hey, this is a team that can go on a run. Super Bowl contender next year, no doubt about it. They still got that phase. I think right now it's too early to call on where I would put them. The season just ended a week ago, so a lot of things are going to happen here. But from now and the next month and a half, and the draft, and then you might have a trade or two. So that's the fun thing about it, though. The Bills got an aggressive GM. They don't got a guy who's just going to sit back there and make no moves. So Bean's got something up his sleeve one way or another. I view this as a crucial offseason going forward, though. How many times is it just going to be you're going to get up to the peak of the roller coaster and we're going to stall there and we're going to have to call the fire department and everyone's going to have to take the stairs down on the roller coaster? So it's a crucial one, as is every single one, but I think this one is going to be the one that we talked about defining moments for legacies as far as Josh and McDermott go and this whole staff all postseason. I think this offseason is just as much of that as it was the postseason. So they bring a few guys in, some notable guys, maybe Myles, Garrett. Hey, Cooper Kupp is a guy who also I'd love to have. I believe there's a picture of it. Might have been his wife or him with a Bills hat on. I can't exactly.
Yeah, hold up. I got you.
Rams said they're going to hold some of that cap if other teams are willing to give up a little bit more. So, hey, the guys are out there. The moves are going to be made. I have faith in this staff and management as they've they've proven in years past. So I think this is a crucial offseason. But as of right now, Jake, I got them as a top 5 team ready to make another run because they got 17 and because they're going to come back better than ever.
We could have the NFL MVP going into the season. I agree with everything.
Probably have the NFL MVP.
We pretty much agree on everything you just said. Like, they are going to be top 5. They're going to have another swing at it, but this is the most crucial offseason Brandon Beane's ever had. And
without a doubt.
You have the cap space. You have 3 top 50, 60 picks. This offseason has to build the Super Bowl roster around Josh Allen. This is your best chance to do it. So no pressure, but it is. I think this is the legacy thing for the legacy moment for Beane. I do agree with that. Joey's here. We are seeing one of the greatest, most talented quarterbacks. Josh Allen can't do this forever. I don't agree that they wasted 8 years of his career because they've been knocking at the door. They've lost to a team 4 years in a row who's about to win 3 Super Bowls in a row. I told you guys that this is going to be my take coming out of it, but I truly believe this. No one has touched this team. So it's frustrating as a Bills fan, but everybody is chasing Kansas City. They have
no one else has the answers either.
Nobody has the answers, and the Bills are as close as they can. And Kansas City will admit to you that the Bills are as close as anybody else. Chris Jones is out there on Radio Row and doing interviews that's like, I love Josh Allen. I love their coaching staff. I respect the fuck out of them. Just unprompted. Like, just talking about this team. Like, the Kansas City knows that that's their biggest competition. That's why they're saving Patrick Mahomes rushing for 50 yards and Patrick Mahomes designed runs for games against the Bills. Like, they know how hard it is to beat that team. Not that it does, though. Eventually, you break down the door. You got to do it. I'm sorry. Like, that's the only way to do it is keep knocking at the door. It's frustrating, but I have more faith that this team's going to get it done than they're not going to in the next 5. It would be more shocking to me if they didn't make it to and win a Super Bowl than them not doing it because of how good they've been. They would be one of the great. In the next
year, over the rest of the career.
Over the rest of his career.
Okay.
Over the rest of his career. Next year is going to be the same as this year. We're going to be like, Kansas City is going to be fucking awesome next year again. Like, we're going to have the same conversations in going into the playoffs again, just with heightened urgency going into it even more than this year, which I don't know how, because I've never felt the way I felt during those 2 playoff games, the nerves that I had. So it's going to be crazy, but anyways, yeah. See, that's the thing. My dad shouting out here. I don't want to relive the drought. I'm good with the drought. Lee B, Patriots are great and got Moss when undefeated and lost the Super Bowl. That's a perfect example. It's so damn hard to win. And there's the thing. That Patriots team, the Chiefs, maybe the Chiefs are 18-0 going into Buffalo next year for the AFC Championship for all we know. The Bills could still win that game. I will still be on this podcast leading up to the week if the Bills are in that game, being like, the Bills have a good chance than anybody to win this game. That's where we're at. It sucks that it keeps happening this way, but they are the only team that can consistently give them a game. No one else has done it. No one else played them this much, right? Like, they played them so much, and so that's part of it. But
and they have a lead every single time. It appears at some point in the game where it feels like they could just pull away. They just don't, because KC has that it factor. And not like the Bills don't. The Bills have that it factor too, but they are the pros pro at pulling out the game when you need it most. And it starts at the very, very top with from Andy Reid, that management down. They just something about them. It's textbook.
I'm just saying, would you hit the button next year for Highmark Stadium, AFC Championship, Bills, Chiefs stopping opportunity to stop the Chiefs from either going to 4 straight Super Bowls and tying the Bills record, or their opportunity to win 4 straight Super Bowls and put Bills fans into online chatter misery? That's the stakes that we're going into the season. Carson, I'm not shying away from how big of a deal the season is next year. I'm embracing it because the Bills, all eyes are on the Bills next year. America is going to be watching the Bills next year.
Of course I'm smashing that button. This is a poetic type of ending. You're down. You have 1 season left in one of the most rich, like history-rich stadiums, Highmark Stadium. That is the most poetic way to overcome everything. And then you start off the year in the the new stadium, raising the banner to
Against
wherever.
Kansas City.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is. There's no, of course. Plus, you're never guaranteed to even make the playoffs again, and for this team next year, because who knows what happens? Maybe Josh gets hurt. Maybe they underperform. Who knows? But you're never guaranteed. Of course, AFC Championship. Only 4 teams make it there that far all year. Of course, I take that. Come on now, will you?
All right. Yeah, that's my vision. It's my pin tweet. It's
Okay.
like my those vision board things.
Yeah.
This is what I open my Twitter. I just see that every day. Like that's what we're aiming for. I think that's where I think the Bills to win the Super Bowl, and I know they didn't beat Kansas City when they had them at home last time. Still, 3-point game came down a couple plays. To win the Super Bowl, they have to get the bye in home field. That's it. That's the only thing that hasn't happened yet. So go be the number 1 seed next year. I think the Bills need to act with that mindset all season. I think the urgency, not that it didn't happen this year from week 1, but I think that needs to be the mindset. We are the best team in the league, and we need to show it every week. And because that 1 seed will go so far for them with the bye and everything else later in the year. It's tough, man. But Joey, I feel you here. You've been lifelong Bills fan. You've been seeing it a lot. I know that it still hurts. I get it, but it's better than the alternative. It's better than being the Cleveland Browns right now. I promise you. The pain is not worth that kind of existence in the NFL. It's just
that's rough over there.
I'll take if I had to choose between the life of a Cleveland Browns fan or an AFC finalist every 4 years, I think I'll take this one. I still had a hell of a time. So Carson, we're in a good space going into the offseason. Super Bowl thoughts. Who's winning?
Casey hasn't played a back like Saquon Barkley all year. Saquon's the best back in the game. No doubt about it. I think as tough as it is to put it on one person's shoulders, if Saquon Barkley doesn't go over like 150, I don't think they pull this game out. So I think this is the game, the Saquon Barkley legacy game. I think this is a game that's they're going to need him. But once again, KC finds solutions. James Cook, though, did show that KC had a vulnerable defense. I think he only touched the ball 13 times.
5 yards, yeah.
Yeah, so Saquon, Philly's going to run the rock with them. That's their identity. Their offensive line is elite. Barkley doesn't get touched till 3 yards down the field, a little under that. So they're physical. They move bodies up front. They've done that well all year. Jalen Hurts, I don't know if he necessarily scares anybody in that passing game, but they're good enough where you at least have to play it. And KC, man, they just find a way. So that's the thing with them. But with that said, though, I think my prediction is going Philly 30, KC 27. I think Philly is going to finish the story, as they would say nowadays.
Gosh. Joey, I gotta give Joey this. I got high blood pressure. It only happens during football season. I'm sure. I wish my little Fitbit thing broke a couple weeks ago, so I didn't have it for the playoff run. I wish I could have seen my heart rate during the Ravens and Chiefs game. It had to be. It would have been like sit down, breathe. What's wrong with you? Are you like it would have been nuts. Carson, I wish I could be as bold as you, but I'm picking Kansas City to win 27-23. I just can't pick against them. And I'm going to be very much rooting against them. I tried to act like I wasn't going to have a rooting interest. I don't want them to win this game. And Saquon Barkley is my second favorite player of all time behind Josh Allen. So I'm very much excited to see this. I just don't trust Jalen Hurts.
That's all
it comes down to again. It's too bad. But I've been pretty consistent about Jalen Hurts my whole life since I've seen him at Alabama, how I feel about him. I said that it was my same reason I picked the Chiefs in the last Super Bowl against them, and Hurts surprised me. Hurts was that was the best game Jalen Hurts has ever played in his life, was the last Super Bowl against Kansas City. And they didn't get it done. I don't think he's going to do that again. And he's shown no sign that he can even get back to that type of game this season. So while I do think Saquon can get to like 160, 170 on the ground, if it comes down to Mahomes with the ball in his hands to either ice the game or take the lead, I'm just not picking against it. And and if you would have pressed me, and I said it all year on this podcast, I kept saying, like, if you got to push me, I'm picking KC again. Like, it just feels that way. They're going to win 3 straight, man. It is what it is.
It is. I just hope they don't, just for record's sake. Plus Bills.
Well, here's the thing: if they don't win, if your prediction's right, and I'm actually surprised that you picked Philly there. So I'm interested. It's just Saquon respected. I respect that because I think Saquon can take over this game, win Super Bowl MVP, and make his stamp his legacy in football, right? But if Kansas City loses this game, then that game next year, this theoretical AFC championship we're talking about, the stakes there with KC on a revenge tour, even scarier. So that's the only way it gets worse. Them winning 4 straight is a bad idea, but them on a revenge, we need to get back to the Super Bowl, might be worse. So.
It's truly an interesting one with KC, man. The story.
No matter what next season. Going into the season, no matter what next year, the Bills and the Chiefs are going to be the A and B story of the NFL. And there's going to be so much hype around them week to week. It's going to be unbearable for us national media wise. So just be prepared for that. Because the Bills are going to be after this year of everybody doubting them and picking against them, everything, they're squarely back in national media focus going into the season, especially if they make a splash like Myles Garrett or something like that. They're going to be everyone's Super Bowl picks. They're going to be the Super Bowl favorites. They're going to get all this love and all this other shit again. And it's going to be them and KC the whole year. I said last week, I want them to lose to KC in the regular season. They should try to lose that game. Stop showing stuff. Stop trying to give them anything, bro. Just start Mitch. Don't even start Josh. Just be like, you don't even get Josh Allen today. You don't even
get a Mike White appearance too, huh?
Yeah, fuck it, bro. I don't even care. And I just said I wanted to win the 1 seed, but the regular season shit ain't working for them, clearly.
They need to reverse it one way or another. But hey, I don't know. We'll see, man. And next year it'll be I don't know. It's just it's so hard to repeat everything, but KC has done it time and time again. So they're gonna be there. The Bills have shown that they can do it time and time again to a certain extent. So it eventually just one of these years knocking on that door, hopefully somebody answers. So
I mean, if they go 0-7 against KC, throughout, if Allen goes 0-8 or 0-7 against Mahomes in his career, it would literally be the most unprecedented thing in NFL history.
You just laugh at that.
Yeah, what can you do? We would just have to take that L and just go with it. So I just don't think it's possible. I think that eventually, if they get there again, they will get by this team. But this Sunday, yeah, I'm with you. I will. I think there's a good chance, but I can't do it. I wish I could. I see the vision. I see it though. I'm gonna be so mad when Kansas City has the ball back with 141, 2 timeouts, down 4, and I'm just fuck. Here we go. Here's this.
Gonna hear about that for the next 2 months.
Here's this pass interference they're gonna get on the sideline that gets them the first down, or a defensive holding or shit like that. I used that picture of James Bradbury hold a lot during AFC Championship week because there are a lot of people going there. Still one of the worst calls I've ever seen in football history, but maybe that's the thing. Maybe the Eagles deserve this. Maybe it's their karma to get their revenge here. Saquon.
Karma for both teams at this point.
It's
a lose-lose.
What is KC? 16 straight 1-possession wins? Or something like that, or 17.
At least something like that, yeah.
To win 17 games in a row is literally unheard of.
Because it's a coin flip in 1 possessions, yeah, right.
How the fuck does this happen?
It's ridiculous.
This shit has to stop at some point, but we'll see. All right, it's gonna be a fun week though. We'll be locked in for the Super Bowl no matter what. I know a lot of people might be boycotting, do whatever they want to do. I'm watching the Super Bowl, guys. It's a national holiday, so I'll be locked in for it. Kendrick Lamar's playing halftime, it's a dream. So. Gonna be a great time, but we paid the bills. Thank you, Carson, for joining. We'll be back next week to talk Super Bowl fallout and give our off-season plans for the Buffalo Bills. So stay tuned for that. Stay locked to Trainwreck Sports in the coming weeks. Bills coverage continues. Sabres coverage, NBA, college basketball, local college hoops. Follow Carson. He's covering everything down there at St. Bonaventure. We got coverage of the Bandits. We got everything going. Movies, TV shows. This train does not stop when the Bills season stops. So stay tuned here. Train never stops. We paid the bills. Thank you, Carson. Thank you, everybody who joined. Have a great night.